So in this demo, you'll see how we are able to blend Azure AI speech and language services to create the audio notes micro SaaS. This demo accompanies the blog that we can see here that will be published this weekend. Before we dive into the demo and the code, it's probably worthwhile just taking a quick look at this sequence diagram, and it shows us the main components that form the solution. So from left to right, we can see we've got a regular .NET controller, the Azure AI speech service, a custom class called text analytics service. We also use the NuGet package Azure AI text analytics, which goes on to call the Azure AI language service. From the top, the main process is the person clicks start, which we can see in number 1 here. The microphone is then activated, and any text that's spoken into the microphone is then sent on to Azure AI speech services for transcription. The transcription is then passed through the text analytics service in step 3, which is then ultimately pushed onto the Azure AI language services via the SDK in steps 4 and 5. So what we'll do now is we'll kick off Visual Studio and we'll run this application. Before we do that, we can see we've got the application here, very straightforward application. We've got the view here, which is capture, CS, HTML. We've got the JavaScript and various HTML elements that form the solution that let us start and stop the recognition and send it for document summarization. We've got a speech to text controller. We can see the method here, summarise text async, which accepts the transcribed text. The transcribed text is then passed on to Azure AI language services for summarization at line 18. We can take a closer look at what happens under the hood in this text analytics service class that's called in line 18, and we can see here we pass in the endpoint and key for the Azure AI service, and then down here in this method here, summarize speech transcript, that's where all the heavy lifting gets done, and in particular it's at line 188 where we start to analyze the content. So we'll run the solution just now, and what we'll see is we get a very simple HTML page, which we can see here. So the blog contains more information about what each part actually does, and what we can do now is to click start recognition. When we click start recognition, the microphone is going to be activated and we'll start to read some content from the blog. As we speak, the text box in the audio console will start to fill up with the words that we speak. When we click stop recognition, the entire transcript will be output into the recognized text box. So we'll click start recognition, and let's take a look at the process and overview stages of this blog. To recap, the entire end-to-end process consists of the following steps. Click Start Recognition in the ASP.NET webpage to activate Azure AI Speech services. A service class, Text Analytics Service, encapsulates all core documents and summarization capabilities. Transcribed audio in string format is passed into this class. The service class invokes Azure AI language services using the AI Text Analytics SDK, passing in the transcribed audio. The transcribed audio string is then summarized by Azure language services, which returns an object that contains a list of the strings which represent the main points that were mentioned in the speech transcript. So we'll stop the recognition now. And we can see in the recognized text box, we've got quite a bit of content there. There's maybe there's probably about 10 to 15 sentences. So we'll click summarize transcript, and here we can see we've got a briefer snapshot of what was discussed. We can see that there's 3 sentences. One that says click start recognition on the ASP.NET webpage. Second sentence talks about the service class and what that invokes and how it's invoked using the Text Analytics SDK, and actually the content that's passed in. If we scroll and look at the recognized text, I think that's a reasonable explanation and a more concise version of the recognized text. So that was it, a quick run through of the Audio Notes MVP. What we've seen is how Azure AI speech and language services have been brought together to create an end-to-end solution that creates concise notes from the spoken word. You can find more information about this demo on the accompanying blog.